key mediator. Qatar says Hamas's response to the latest plan for a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages was generally positive. Today is Wednesday, February 7th, 2024, and this is the Dunkley Report. Key mediator. Qatar says Hamas's response to the latest plan for a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages was generally positive. But in its own statement, the militant group reiterated its demand for an end to the war, something Israel has thus far ruled out. Qatar's Prime Minister announced the response Tuesday during a news conference with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who said he would brief Israel's leaders on it when he meets with them on Wednesday. Blinken met with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince the day before. He said the Saudis still have a strong interest in normalizing relations with Israel. A federal appeals court panel has ruled Donald Trump can face trial on charges he plotted to overturn the results of the 2020 election. The court on Tuesday rejected the Republican ex-president's claims that he's immune from prosecution. It's the second time in as many months judges have spurned Trump's immunity arguments and said he can be prosecuted for actions undertaken while in the White House and in the run-up to the Jan. 6, 2021, Capitol riot. The court's decision sets the stage for additional appeals from Trump to either the U.S. Supreme Court or the entire U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. The trial was originally set for March, but it was postponed last week, and the judge didn't immediately set a new date. A Senate deal on border enforcement measures and Ukraine aid has suffered swift and total collapse. Republicans withdrew support despite President Joe Biden urging Congress to show some spine and stand up to Donald Trump. But Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says that a deal to pair border policy changes with $60 billion in wartime aid for Ukraine is dead. The White House had worked for months with senators on the carefully negotiated compromise in hopes it would unlock Republican votes for the aid in the House. But after Republicans rejected the compromise, the President and Senate leaders are now stranded with no clear way to advance aid for Ukraine through Congress. Nikki Haley has been swamped in Nevada's symbolic Republican presidential primary as GOP voters resoundingly picked the none of these candidates option on the ballot. Front-runner Donald Trump didn't compete in the primary, which doesn't award any delegates needed to win the GOP nomination. The former president is instead focused on caucuses that will be held Thursday and will help him move closer to becoming the Republican standard-bearer. That leaves the Republican results Tuesday technically meaningless. But they still amount to an embarrassment for Haley, the former UN ambassador, who has sought to position herself as a candidate who can genuinely compete against Trump. President Joe Biden easily won the state's Democratic primary. In a dramatic setback, House Republicans have failed to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The vote forced Republicans to shelve a high-profile priority. For now, after a few GOP lawmakers refused to go along with the party's plan, the stunning roll call fell just a single vote short of impeaching Mayorkas. In a dramatic scene on the House floor, it stalled the Republicans' drive to punish the Biden administration over its handling of the U.S.-Mexico border. With Democrats united against the charges, the Republicans needed almost every vote from their slim majority to approve the articles of impeachment. The House is likely to revisit plans to impeach Mayorkas, but next steps are highly uncertain. A Michigan jury has found a school shooter's mother guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the deaths of 4 students in 2021. The verdict returned Tuesday makes Jennifer Crumbley the first parent in the U.S. to be held responsible for a child carrying out a mass school attack. Prosecutors said Crumbley was grossly negligent. She failed to tell Oxford High School officials that the family had a gun that her son, Ethan Crumbley, had used at a shooting range. Ethan was allowed to stay in school on November 30, 2021, after school staff expressed concerns to his parents about his violent words and drawings. The teenager pulled the gun from his backpack that afternoon and shot 11 people. No one had checked the backpack. Britain's Prime Minister says that King Charles III's cancer was caught early, and the monarch will crack on with his constitutional duties. The remarks came as Prince Harry flew in from California on Tuesday for a rare visit with his father. Royal officials announced Monday that the 75-year-old king has been diagnosed with an undisclosed form of cancer and is receiving treatment as an outpatient. Less than 18 months into the reign that he'd famously waited decades to begin, Charles suspended public engagements, but will continue with state business and won't be handing over his constitutional roles as head of state. On Tuesday afternoon, Harry could be seen arriving at the King's Clarence House residence in a black SUV after an overnight flight. Facing a growing backlash, the U.S. Census Bureau has halted plans to change how it asks people about disabilities. Census Bureau Director Robert Santos said Tuesday that the Bureau plans to meet with advocates in the disability community and determine what changes to questions on its American Community Survey are needed to better capture the range of disabilities. He says the Bureau also will keep the current questions about disabilities on the 2025 American Community Survey. Disability advocates had complained the changes would artificially reduce their numbers. The California Cheese and Dairy Company is the source of a decade-long outbreak of listeria food poisoning that killed 2 people and sickened more than 24. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention made the announcement Tuesday. Rizzo Lopez Foods of Modesto, California, has recalled more than 60 types of soft cheeses, sour cream, and yogurt after the bacteria was found in a product. At least 26 people in 11 states have been sickened since 2014. 2 people died in Texas and California. The CDC previously investigated the outbreak in 2017 and 2021. Country music singer-songwriter Toby Keith, whose pro-American anthems were both beloved and criticized, has died. He was 62. A statement posted on his website says Keith died peacefully Monday, surrounded by his family. He had stomach cancer. The statement says he fought his fight with grace and courage. He announced his cancer diagnosis in 2022. Keith broke out in the country boom years of the 1990s, crafting an identity around his macho swagger and writing songs that fans loved to hear. His hits included How Do You Like Me Now, Should Have Been a Cowboy, and Beer for My Horses, a duet with Willie Nelson. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Wednesday, February 7th, 2024. Thanks again for joining us at The Dunkley Report.